Welcome to Elevate, the podcast where we dissect exceptional achievers who are consistently raising the bar personally and professionally to produce extraordinary results in investment real estate and ultimately in their lives. Now here's your host, Tyler Chesser.
Elevate Nation, welcome back. This is Tyler Chesser. I'm so thankful to have you here. And I want to ask you a question. Are you ready to take it to another level? Because I know I am. And I've got Jake Stenziano here with me today. Jake, how are you, sir?
I'm ready to take it to another level, man. Let's get this thing cranked up, all right?
I love it, man. This is exactly why we have you on the show, because you bring the energy. I knew you'd bring the energy. You'd also bring the wisdom. But I want to welcome back Elevate Nation, because this is the show where our mission is to identify and apply how the best of the best are raising the bar personally and professionally to achieve greatness in real estate and beyond. And this is a masterclass. We have a master here. We are here to identify, what are we doing to achieve uncommon results? What are the purposeful outcomes we're seeking? Whether it's through real estate investing, but ultimately real estate investing is a vehicle for your life. And, if you appreciate what we're doing, we would appreciate if you subscribe to our show, if you gave us a rating, a review. We certainly appreciate everyone who has subscribed to the show. And while we do that, I definitely want to go ahead and dive in, but I want to introduce Elevate Nation to Jake Stenziano. If you haven't heard of him, he's all over the place. Come on, you're living under a rock, first of all. But Jake Stenziano is the best-selling author of Wheelbarrow Profits and the co-founder of jakeandgino.com, the only multifamily real estate investment education company that teaches investors the three pillars of sound apartment investing: buy right, manage right, and finance right. Jake is also the founder and chief operating officer of Rand Property Management, and the first property management company with a focus on modern affordability. As a creator of the multimedia, multifamily investing framework, Wheelbarrow Profits, Jake is a leading expert on investing in the multifamily space and controls over 1,500 multifamily units and over, it's probably more than this, but $90 million in assets.
We're just north of 100 now, so we got these things got to keep getting updated, I guess.
I know. Well, you keep going. You're going too fast for us to keep up, man. That's the biggest problem here. But obviously, there's much more to you as a person, and we've got a brief bio here, and there's a lot to you. So tell the listeners a little bit more about Jake Stenziano behind the bio.
So I think you just mentioned like vehicle or machine, and you got the wheels turning. It was funny because I was actually doing interviews this morning, and it's just kind of how my brain works. I like people to go down a road, and then we can kind of dive deep and dissect it a little bit. And what just came to mind when you brought up the word vehicle was, every day we have to start the engine. I don't care if I have 100 million or a billion or 3 billion. You have to start the engine every day and not take anything for granted. And I think that's something that's really been resonating with me lately. It's you got to show up every day. You got to start the engine. Don't take anything for granted. Have a humble, approach and outlook. And then to kind of pair with that whole vehicle analogy, I work every day to build a well-oiled machine. We were talking a little bit before we got on the show, and it's literally every day that we talk about our business outlook, and that's education times action equals results. So you have to get educated in whatever you're going to do, but then so much of that equation is taking massive action to get to where you want to be. So putting that together, education times action equals results. Well, that's great. That's like your ticket to get into the game. That's your pass. You showed up. Okay, I got a deal done. That's what it took to get the deal done. After that, we really look at people, systems, and culture. People are, especially real estate is such a team sport. So you got to focus on people. And then, looking at the systems piece of it, we signed up earlier this year for some coaching through Scaling Up. And we're really diving deep into that, looking at our business hard. And it's made a significant impact. We obviously have the education company, but we are also huge consumers of coaching, of education. I think in the last year and a half alone, Gino and I have invested over $300,000 into ourselves and into our businesses, from coaching and mentorship programs. So I think that's tremendous. And, the culture piece is big. Next week, we're taking the entire team up to Nantahala for this major whitewater rafting event. Everyone's staying over. We have a private dinner, campfire, probably have a couple, Coors Lights. We like to call them CL smoothies, but it's going to be a great, team building environment. We're going to have a very good time there. We just partnered recently with the Boys and Girls Club. We built a playground. We're looking to feed about 20,000 kids for Thanksgiving this year as part of our whole Rand Cares initiative. So I think it all really starts to come together. But after you get that first deal, people, systems, and culture, it's what I work on, day in and day out.
So obviously you found your niche in real estate in terms of all of this. I mean, there's so much to really dissect in here. You talked about education times action equals results. And that's what I see a lot of times, people who are trying to get into business or they're trying to get into something, they're trying to become more, they soak themselves up with so much education. I love the fact that you match that with action. Because really what I've learned is that the best way to learn is by doing. I mean, I think you and I both connected so much on books and learning and how to become more and how to equip yourself with the appropriate information. But taking action on that information is really the most important part, because that's how you learn. That's how you get feedback. That's how you fail. And, when you fail, you become better, but also you talked about you've got to start the engine every single day. One thing that I heard recently was, it's like you've got to recreate yourself daily, because yes, you put in work that now is, showing up in your life or in your business in different ways and results. But also if you rest on your laurels, it's not going to be there for long. And so I love that thought. So tell me a little bit about, how did you get to this point? I know that your background was in pharmaceutical sales, and how did you find real estate, and how did you ultimately get to a point where you've become so relentless in what you've done? So where did that drive come from? And was there a moment in time where you really just kind of drew a line in the sand and said, I'm not going to achieve, I'm not going to live a common life. I'm going to achieve an uncommon life?
It's really tough. So this is going to be very long-winded. So stay with me, folks, because we're going to go back and then we're going to jump ahead a little bit here. It sounds silly, but I remember being probably 8 years old. I'm sitting, and this is for the YouTube folks out there. I'm sitting at the table with my dad, and I got this matchbook, and we're sliding it across the table. And any of you that have played that football game before, where you kick it across, if the matchbook lands on the corner, you flip it up, it's a touchdown, and then you kick it. And it's just it's a fun game. But from an early age, my dad never, ever let me win at anything. And he would beat my ass day in and day out, whether we were playing Mario Brothers, Tecmo Bowl, or the little tabletop football game. And it just, I don't know if it unleashed a extreme competitive nature within me, or it's just something that it's who I am. It's my chemical makeup as a human being. But I remember, going back and just, it was almost like just keep running into the wall, and I'd maybe win 1 out of 10 games. I don't know where that came from, but it's been instilled in me, from an early age. I played, quarterback in high school. I played quarterback in football. So just always rah, let's bring the team together and kick some ass. I can't explain where that came from. I have no idea, but I'm very blessed and thankful that I have a very high motor. I have a shit ton of energy every day. I'm just inspired to get up earlier and earlier and get things done. So either thank God for that, or thank my dad, or however, or maybe it's a combination of both. I don't know where that came from. Getting into the, going back to the pharmaceutical days a little bit, I had some very good mentors. I'll go back to Dr. Neshawat, was a doctor I was calling on, and he was the last doctor in New York, in the territory that I was in, to actually retain his autonomy. And what do I mean by that? If you go back to 2007, 2008, there was the big healthcare reform. And basically what happened is all the private practice doctors got gobbled up by groups. Dr. Neshawat did not, because he owned real estate from Florida all the way up the East Coast. So he was able to live a life on his own terms, and that really sat with me. And I'm saying all these doctors who used to be like the big ballers out there are now getting gobbled up by medical groups and turned into W-2 employees. And to see this whole thing unfold was kind of like, wow, these guys used to show up when they wanted to, live life on their own terms, and now they have to go work for these corporations. And I was like, what is going on here? And why is this guy different? And the reason he was different is because he owned real estate and lived off of passive income. He still was a doctor because he wanted to be. He worked for the fire department because he wanted to. He did these things to give back because he was in control of his time. And that was like so eye-opening to me. So he started coaching me, and he's saying, the thing that you need to do right now, because I lived in an apartment, he said, you need to go buy a duplex, rent out the other half. He said, that's what I did when I got out of residency. So when he started, his wife was pissed about it. Didn't want to, be married to a doctor and live in a duplex, but that's what they did. And they started building up their real estate portfolio. Best advice I never took. So I just want to share that because I should have taken that advice. Anyways, fast forward, I meet Gino at the restaurant because they're doing all my catering. I decide, hey, New York is crazy. I see, Gino, his brother, my friends, they're all paying like $25,000, $35,000, $40,000 in property taxes. New York's paying you for, anywhere from between 7 to 10% in state income tax. And as a W-2 employee at that time, I look around and I'm saying, I could go to Florida, I could go to Tennessee, these places where there's no state income tax, property taxes are very low. I'm going to get an immediate $30,000, $40,000 raise just by taking a lateral transfer with my company. So I do that, and at the same time, I'm talking to Gino about real estate because I'm taking Dr. Neshawat's wisdom. I know Gino wants to get into multifamily. I'm very good friends just with the family. We start looking at deals in Knoxville at the time. We're seeing $30,000 a door, and I'm looking on LoopNet with Gino. I don't know what any of this stuff is. I got a burning desire, and I want to really take control of my destiny because the pharmaceutical company is telling me year in and year out, going through the healthcare reform, we're circling back now, go home. We're going to give you a call. Once we're done with that call, you'll know if you have a job or not for the next year.
Wow.
That's not a comfortable way to live your life. For the folks out there, like that gets old quick. And I don't know how many of those, thank God, I made it through all those, but that's not a good way to live your life. So I went, through the ringer so many times on that. And thankfully, the real estate, we got our first deal done. It took us 18 months. 6 months later, we got another one done. 6 months after that, we got another one done. So we just started knocking these deals out left and right. Fortunately, because I don't know, like eventually my number was going to get called. It was a numbers game. Some of it, it was just luck of the draw. So, fast forwarded that last piece a little bit, but, I think we committed, we stayed in our lane. I think the reason we were successful in the beginning was because Gino was sick of the restaurant. He was burned out. I was really getting sick of the pharmaceutical game. We would go on these company retreats and, they'd send us to a hotel for a weekend to do a training. And I was like, that's when I'm going to get fired because I was like, always wanted to speak my mind. I'm like, I got great ideas. Let's do this. And they didn't want to hear that. It was just like conform, get in line, be a soldier. And I very much struggle with that. Not necessarily a great employee. So that's where I thought I was eventually going to get canned, but I was able to leave on my own. But I think the reason we succeeded in the beginning, we have these 3 whys that Gino and I always talk about, because we always go back and analyze. We talk about the buy right, manage right, and finance right of Wheelbarrow Profits. And then we always like to look back and say, why were we successful? In the beginning, it was a burning desire for sure. I wanted to take control over my life. I wanted to, make sure that I'm providing as a male provider of my household. I want to take care of my family. So we picked the right vehicle early on, and we wanted financial freedom. So it was a lot of clarity between Gino and I. That's why we got in the game. The reason we succeeded is because from day one, we've treated multifamily as a business. A lot of folks get into it. Maybe it's a passive investment. I know I should be in real estate. Real estate sounds like a good idea. Oh, the real estate market's going up. It's all these things that are pushing people into it. This became my primary focus, and I put all my attention into it, and I stayed in that lane. I did not look for, oh, Bitcoin's up today, or hey, maybe I should go do a fix and flip, or maybe there's this stock that's really hot. It was laser focus on multifamily, and when I diversified in multifamily, it meant I got another multifamily business or another multifamily asset. That was it. So it was a strong commitment. We treated it as a business, so that's why we won. So. And the third piece to it was, okay, we built up a pretty large portfolio. We bought our first 1,000 units ourselves. We're set financially free. We really don't need to do it anymore. There's plenty of cash flow coming in every month. But then we realized that the thing that was driving us now was we're building these communities. So we're improving the lives of others by creating communities that allow people to become the best version of themselves. And that has really become our core purpose and what we're championing now, because we're creating great lives for our residents that live within our RAND property management communities. We're creating great opportunities for our employees. We're going out and we're giving back, whether it's through a RAND Cares event. We're creating great opportunities for our investors that are coming on board now, partnering with us in syndications. So that really is the main driver and fueling everything that we're doing. I don't know what I would do if I was not working. I'd be driving my wife nuts and it would be creating too much turmoil at home. So I have to be active. I have to be moving. And that's my story, man. Great show today. Peace and love, brother. I'll see you. All right.
Yeah. Mic drop. No, I can relate to so much of this because I was like you, man. I was in the corporate world and I was like, man, this sucks. Honestly, I didn't have any time. I didn't have any money either because I mean, you don't have any leverage there. You're straight up trading your time for money. There's no ability of creating wealth unless you stick around for decades and decades and you get to the C-suite. And, at that point, you're still getting taxed to the hilt in that type of position. So I can totally relate. But if you look back and it's like life happened for you, it put you in a position to acquire that burning desire, it puts you in a position to really, dig deep to your competitive nature and say, all right, well, this makes more sense for me. And you were able to pivot. So I think that's really, such a great takeaway, because so many people just take what life gives them and they tolerate it. They crank it up every day. They plug in, they get to their desk, they're there from 9 to 5. And when 5:01 hits, you better believe they're out the door. And when they get home, they're popping a couple of beers and watching their favorite sitcom. And it's like they live this whole life that they tolerate, when they don't realize that all they have to do is just face a little bit of fear and step right on the other side of that. And everything for the taking is there. And the other thing too, I want to just mention, I feel like you're in this boat, and so many people who have that job, they feel like it's secure, but it's really not. I mean, at any time, your employer can call you and say, hey, we're going to decide if you're sticking around tomorrow. It's like the call that you got. I mean, I don't feel like a lot of people get that call, but that discussion is being had all the time. And so if you can take your control of yourself with real estate and, developing your team, developing your systems, developing your own philosophies, your whys, like Jake is talking about here. I mean, it's huge. So, there's a ton of wisdom there. I highly recommend you to go back and replay exactly what Jake's talking about here. But Jake, I want to fast forward a little bit here.
Can I say something real quick before your question?
Please, of course.
So you brought up a great quote from Jay-Z, and it's like you hit the fork in the road and you go straight. So think about that a lot of times. It's that fear that you just got to pound through to get to where you want to go. And I just want to go back to my days when I was in pharma, because we would literally be at these meetings and I'd be like, oh, my hand's coming up. I got something. What if we did it like this? And I couldn't, and I finally got beat down so much that it was demoralizing, because I was like, well, what if we tried it like this? And I had so many ideas and I was so eager to take the business to the next level, but it was just going through such a transformation. I was not a good fit for them any longer. When I first got into it, it was let's get out there, let's make it happen. We're going to kick down doors. So it was a great environment for the first year. Introduce healthcare reform, it's no longer the same thing. And it became a very toxic environment for someone that wants to push it and really get out there and just, succeed and create. It just became a terrible environment for me. So it was no longer a good fit. So I was able to fortunately get out of it. But
most people never question that, though. They just accept it. They get beat down 5 or 6 times, and then they're trained to be that way, and they go in the corner and they put their tail between their legs, and they never question it for the next 30 years.
Fit. Yeah.
Can you imagine? I cannot imagine.
Lived it. So.
But people have got to realize that, there's a lot of people who have as much gusto as you do, or many others that we associate with. So I think people have got to step up and realize, look, you got to have some courage here, because if not, I mean, your life is going to pass before your eyes.
You get one shot at this, folks.
Exactly. It's huge. So let me fast forward a little bit, man. So tell me about, I mean, you guys, like you told me, you're cranking up the engine every single day. You're restarting this machine, this vehicle every single day. So tell me about what's an example of how you've raised the bar recently in your business?
Yeah, so we've taken on 2 pretty big business initiatives. So the first one, well, I mean, we've added multiple companies over the years, and every year it seems like we're adding a new company. But in the last year, we have a book coming out. It's The Honeybee. It's a really cool parable that Gino and I wrote. That's coming out in the middle of October. Alongside our event, we have Multifamily Mastery 3. I think you're going to be there, right?
Unfortunately, I can't make it, but
you're breaking my heart, man.
I know.
You're breaking my heart.
I know a lot of people who will be there, though.
Yeah. So Multifamily Mastery 3, we got a really cool thing going. So a few of the events and new initiatives that we have coming out, but so we were having a discussion. We go up to the Biltmore every year for something we call President's Club. So the top performing office, we take them on a retreat, all expenses paid, spa service, just, the best food and dining. It's a great time. We're riding the grounds. And so, we try not to get too much into the business, but, a few things came out that, we felt like we were not executing well enough. So we were touching on a minute ago that we brought on the scaling up coaches. So that was a major investment into the business. And so we're pushing it in the fact that we're doing great with our people. We have really great folks on the team. We're doing great with the strategy. We believe that our blue ocean, our or place that we're not going to have to compete with people is having an extremely high level of customer service. We look at it and say, in the C&B apartment space where we primarily operate, there's a lack of customer service. And if we can take our net promoter score to 75 or greater, and this is something that came out of our coaching, if we take our net promoter score, it's to 75 or better, that's competing with companies like Apple, okay? That's the kind of net promoter score they get. We're not competing with anybody, okay? We're not going to be competing with anybody that's coming in because we have such a high level of customer service. We have such a great customer experience in the C&B apartment space that is going to allow us to get a good, affordable rent for what we're offering. Similar to Chick-fil-A. I always talk about we want to be the Chick-fil-A of apartments. Look, we're going to $7, $8 sandwich, but people are going to love to come back to us, and there's going to be a line out in the street at lunchtime. So that's what we're trying to create. Definitely not there yet, but that's what we show up every day and work hard for. So we brought on some coaches for this, and we're working very hard because what we found is we needed a bigger back office. And that's where the sludge was coming in. We're trying to implement these things. We have really good, field teams. We have something we call a CapEx crew, in-house renovation crew, but we weren't executing because our back office was too small. So now we've been expanding our back office for the last few months, moving some pieces around, bringing some new folks on, because the piece that we were struggling with was not the cash, not the strategy, not the people, but it was their fourth leg, which was the execution. And we realized we were just literally short on A players and didn't have enough resources at the time. So that's a pretty major initiative that we're going through this year. And we also adopted the highest package that you can get from ADP, which was a pretty significant investment. I think it was an additional like 20 grand that we put into our business. So that will help with our hiring. So we're getting, if you look at the economy right now, more people are employed than like the last 60 years. So you really got to compete to bring good folks on. And I think if you look at, our family of companies, we're running 60 some odd employees right now. So we really want to be bringing on A players. So we have our own landing page for ADP. It's everything is stored in the cloud now. So when you log on and you're signing up for your W-2 and all this stuff, it's all, this is boring back-end stuff, but this is stuff that we're putting back into the business to make sure that we're running a professional, well-oiled machine. So
I love how I ask how is one example of how you raised the bar recently, and you give me like 6. I mean, come on.
Well, I just what do we can talk about some more, but I want to try to make sure that I'm giving a complete answer for you.
No. I'm kidding, of course, but yeah. I love the thought of the blue ocean. You don't need to compete against anyone. This is what Elevate's all about. You elevate above the competition, elevate above the people who are, bottom feeders. I mean, there's so many of these people who are out there claiming to be multifamily real estate investors or in so many different businesses. So creating the experience of the Chick-fil-A. I mean, look, when someone says my pleasure, that's a pattern interrupt instead of you're welcome. I mean, it's a very simple process, but if you treat people with respect, if you go above and beyond, you go the extra mile, that is the way to really kind of rise above the competition. And obviously, the boring things are key in business too. I mean, you've got to have your systems, you've got to have your processes for attracting talent, or what have you. So, and also
one of the new positions that we're working on right now is based all around quality control, because one of the big things that we look at is how good does your website look? That's the first touch. How good does your signage and your landscaping look when you come in? Does the representative at the desk get up, greet you with a smile, and ask you, hey, do you want a root beer? How can I help you today? It's like that kind of stuff that the quality control is even being ramped up more within our organization. So yeah.
Well, and the biggest, I guess the core concept of all of this is reinvesting in your business. I mean, reinvesting in, you're scaling up coaching, reinvesting in new content, the book that's coming out, the Honeybee, all of these different things, quality control. I mean, most operators are not investing in those type of items, but you're thinking about how can you go the extra mile. So it's a great takeaway for Elevate Nation, because most people, a lot of people try to cut corners, and yes, you might win the short-term battle that way. You might reduce your expenses, but this is a long game, especially real estate. It's a very, very long game. So I respect you very much for that.
Even like I came in flying in here on 2 wheels because I was on a property just before this. So it's like, it's like, I still enjoy, like, maybe, I get too much of what we like to refer to as the I'm a mentality. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do everything. That's how we started. I was cutting lawns, guys. Like our first 25 unit, I bought a lawnmower to cut. And it was like, I didn't understand scale enough at that point. I shouldn't have done that. That was a mistake. I'm not saying do it, but I'm also very engaged and was just on a property, within the last hour. So
We have
Love
to
what we
start
do.
somewhere, and that's
Yeah.
it's a really, actually, it's a great segue because I'm curious to know at this point. I mean, you
Hmm.
guys have got opportunities pouring in left and right, whether it's a deal or a new business, or, and you mentioned earlier, you've got to be laser focused. But how do you say no? I mean, how do you have a process for how do you evaluate opportunities, or what do you go through?
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a process other than that. I will let it sit for a little bit and evaluate it. Like, for some things you definitely try to put, for example, if we're going to do a deal, we're going to self-management because we're vertically integrated. So we're going to look at about a 5-hour radius around Knoxville. So we're hitting most of Tennessee. We're hitting North Carolina, South Carolina, Chattanooga, Georgia. We get down in Alabama. So there's a lot of opportunity. We pretty much operate in the SEC. So
Hmm.
that's one thing that we put in place. We do have parameters though. It's when we talk about the buy rate, there's certain cash on cash parameters that we're looking for on the front end if we're going to buy a deal. We like to buy deals that cash flow from day one that we can force appreciation for tomorrow. We have bought, we bought a deal in December in Knoxville. It was extremely hairy. It was $20,000 a door, and we're renovating that. That's not a typical syndication deal because it's going to go sideways 15 times before we'll get it to where it needs to be, but it's going to, it's going to be a challenge. So on the primary investments like that for the syndicated deals, we like stuff that's going to cash flow from day one. We like long-term fixed rate debt. So there's definitely parameters that if, hey, checks these boxes, we're moving forward on. We're probably like right now we have, like I said, talked about, we have the syndication company, we have the education company, the property management, and the mortgage brokerage. We have enough in front of us right now that I'm probably not looking to take on any more entities or new businesses. They're all based around multifamily.
Hmm.
But just recently, my partner Dylan did a deal up in West Virginia, and it didn't fit into that box. It wasn't something we were going to self-manage. It was too far away. I think it was 60 some odd units. I think it's going to be a great deal. I think they're going to do really well with it, but it didn't necessarily fit into what I'm looking for. So, he was pushing me forward on a while. I was like, come on, man, I want to get you in on this. But, it's one of those things where that's the kind of thing that I had to say no to. So,
Yeah, it's sticking to your criteria, right? I mean, not
yeah.
everything works. I had this question recently. It's like, well, why don't you buy every deal? And it's like, well, of course I invest in real estate, but I can't buy every deal, and not every deal makes sense for me. Just because it doesn't make sense for me doesn't mean it's not going to fit your parameters or your outcome. So, I love
Plus,
that.
you find like a niche. We have certain deals that we just like to do. We don't like to buy at the higher end and then try to force more higher end.
Hmm.
Because really our strategy is we believe there's a larger pool of people that are going to be in, say, the $700 to $900 price range, given on your market. I mean, that's depending on where you are. But we like the C and B class space where there's going to be a lot of folks that are, we're next to Denso in Blount County, Tennessee, for example. About 3,000 employer. They make parts for Toyota. We're like Denso apartments over there. Everyone comes over from Denso. They rent with us. They're probably between $750 and $800 a month. Everyone makes $16 an hour there. That's the kind of setup that we love. I don't necessarily love a C class, a 70s build that has already been put $10,000 a door into it, and we think if we do this one little tweak, we can get it from 1,000 to 1050. That's not necessarily our play. That's not
Hmm.
necessarily what we're looking for.
So tell me about Jake Stenziano, the habitual person behind all of this. Tell me about some habits that are, key for you that set you up for success.
Yeah, extremely disciplined. Everyone picks on me. So I got this thing that I've been doing for years called the coach's sheet. And I have everything like time blocked on this by the day. I write down some, goals at the top. I'll share some of these silly little things, but we're on our way to, $1 billion in assets under management. I want to become the Chick-fil-A of apartments. So I'm writing these things down every day on this cardstock. I've had this same type of cardstock with me going back to, I would say 2007, and it would sit next to me, and I would have all the doctors that I would go see, next to it. It was like my routing for pharmaceuticals. I have different goals in the back of it, but this dictates my day. So I wake up, I'm at this desk right here for the folks on YouTube at about 6 a.m. On Mondays, I'm meditating. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, I'm meditating first thing in the morning. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I actually do like different cognitive brain test things. So I go on and, do these different like games on there and whatnot. Usually hitting a coffee, some electrolytes in the morning, maybe like a little vitamin D3 and fish oil. So that's kind of getting the morning kicked off. From that point, after that, on here, I'm usually stretching, getting a workout in. 3 days a week, I'm doing cardio. And I'm hitting, it's weird how I do Audible, but I have 3 different Audible books going usually, and I have a timer going. And I'll usually, it's just kind of, maybe I'm a little sporadic, but I usually hit 3 books in the morning, whether it's from some at 5 minutes, if it's a shorter one, maybe 10 minutes, depending on what I'm doing with it. And then trying to get a little social media in when I can. I just, we have folks that post a lot on our regular accounts, but I'm actually in control of my own social media accounts. So I'll usually throw a few things up there. And then from there, kind of diving into the day. So it's usually about 2 hours of just working on myself in the morning, and then from that point, whether we're doing our level 10 meetings, like my day right now typically is a lot of coaching, and it's business systems and working on the business and coaching our employees. I have level 10 meetings, every week with the different property managers, regional managers, folks from the Jake and Gino team, folks from the Rand Partners team, folks from Rand Capital. And so there's a lot of business planning, strategy going on, reviewing deals and things like that. And I love to get out as much as I can and actually get on site. That's what I probably enjoy the most every week. So
I love it. Your whole life and your whole business is all about habits. I mean, it sounds like. And
no, I mean, it's ridiculous. Like this is probably, this thing is silly, but it probably more so than anything, this just relentless discipline and knowing exactly where I'm going. Because I found that if I'm very disciplined, I know the times that, going back to even the pharmaceutical days, knowing the right times to see these doctors, time slotting them, I'm going to get more done. I'm going to get more calls in, and I'm going to outpace my competition. And it's like, I just follow you don't got to think. I wake up, I look at it the night before, and there's something there too, because I think it gets into your subconscious. And the next day, I just follow the yellow brick road. Mm-hmm. That's it. And then, I'll try to, really contribute the most to whatever. If I'm here with you today, or if I have a meeting after this, just try to contribute the most that I can to it. So,
well, and it's like, I mean, I read the book earlier this year, actually, Getting Things Done by David Allen, which is a phenomenal book. And actually, I want to come back to the level 10 meetings, because I think you're talking about traction, right?
We got that from Traction, correct?
Yes. So this is a phenomenal book, but also Getting Things Done. What he talks about is, if you get the things out of your head that you're trying to remember, oh, wait a minute, I got to do this. I got to have this meeting. I got to do this research. But if you can get it out of your head and you can build systems, you can build habits, you get your mind like water. So then you can be the most creative that you can be, and you don't have to worry about thinking about it. You can become your greatest self, So that's exactly what you're doing here.
So check this out. You know how I talked about doing the testing on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I score the worst when it comes to memorization. Like the creativity and some of this other stuff, I crush it, and I'm like in the 90th percentile. The memorization, I'm like 60, but I don't need it though.
Your mind wasn't built to store information. We have so many resources and tools to do that for us. That's not what your mind is for. Most people are trying to remember their to-do list in their brain, and then they're just fumbling all over themselves because they can't remember.
This takes me an hour every Sunday minimum.
Yes.
And it's the best use of my time every week. And I have a few sources that I pull from my calendar. I pull from Zoom. And then I actually have notes on the back of this for stuff that got missed. So I have these few data sources that I pull, and then I time slot it appropriately. It a lot easier, man. It makes life a lot easier just knowing where you're going.
Yeah, I do a weekly impact list on Sundays. It takes me 30 minutes. I go through everything. I've got like a Microsoft OneNote or whatever, and you go through. It's like each section of your life, whatever part of your business. It's like, all right, well, what do we need to move forward? What's the next action for this? What's the next action for this? What do I need to get scheduled this week? What leverage do I need? Who do I need to bring in as part of this? So yeah, I mean, it's all about planning. But if most people aren't willing to do, well, my Sundays for me to relax and do whatever. It's like, okay, well, you're going to be spinning your wheels the whole rest of the week. So
no one's up in my house Sunday mornings but me anyways. What am I going to do myself?
Yeah, exactly. I get bored. So tell me,
actually real quick, funny story behind this. So Gino told me that the reason that he was interested in speak, because I was friends with his brother. His brother and I used to go to Yankee games and everything. He said the reason that he was interested in getting to know me in the beginning, I was the only rep that came into their restaurant And I would have my entire month planned out, and I would say, "Here are the lunches that we're doing this month. Let's get them on the calendar so we're prepared and booked." And he was just like really surprised by that, because a lot of the people would call him like an hour or two before the lunch. "Hey, I need this and this and this," and it was always this, like fire drill, and it became like they can't serve these people as well as they wanted to when it's rush, because it takes drivers. You got to book the drivers, make sure that you know where the routes are going, time to prepare the food. So it's not this, willy-nilly, we'll just throw it together and get it done thing. So it kind of actually led to the real estate business, believe it or not.
I mean, most people don't plan. I mean, you see that all the time where it's like, and especially in real estate, I see it all the time, last minute stuff. It's like, hello, we've had months to be able to, prepare for whatever it is.
Oh my God. On your side, closing the deal. Cause listen,
Ridiculous.
When you're dealing with the agencies too, and folks that have not had a lot of, experience dealing with Fannie and Freddie, you have to have your shit together. Cause they're going to ask you for, a list. We did 3 refis once, and I'll shit you not, there was 150 blank pages that I just go in and sign. Okay. I mean, and they're like, well, it's all online, right? But the point is, you have to have your shit together with these folks. If not, Tyler is going to, try to sell you a deal and be like, look, this guy does not have it together. He's not a closer. You got to step up and be ready to get this stuff done.
So who are your role models? I mean, because you're getting a lot of this information, obviously, from other people, and you've been able to put your own spin on it. I mean, you're not creating the wheel across, everything here.
No, I'm looking for other people that have been successful. And then, how can I utilize that in our multifamily business? Just like Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is a role model of mine. That company, I'm in awe of, that they have minimum wage or $15 an hour workers or whatever that are able to process that many vehicles at lunch, provide good service with a good attitude. So I love Chick-fil-A's business model, number one. Number two, I love Ayn Rand, who's no longer with us, but I'm such a huge fan of Atlas Shrugged, Fountainhead, phenomenal. Don't waste your time in the movies. Take the time, read the books. That's where it's at. And really, Ray Dalio, his book Principles, I've gone through it 3 times, just like I've gone through Atlas Shrugged 3 times. One thing that you'll find with me is that I become a creature of habit, like we've been talking about. And if I find something like Atlas Shrugged or Principles, I may go through it 3 to 5 times, because every time I go through it, it's literally getting beat into my head. It takes some time. I told you my memorization is not the greatest, and I'll find nuggets every time, versus going off and reading another book that's going to have much lower value. I'd rather kind of operate my time and really get the lessons beat into me than, I'll go, because that's what I'm doing. I'm training. I'm not doing it necessarily for enjoyment. I'm doing it to get better in life and create a phenomenal life of abundance for myself and my family. That's the goal here. That's what we're trying to achieve. So there's that. And then obviously, like Steve Jobs, the book that, Walter Isaacson did.
So good.
Holy shit, man. That I truly enjoyed. I mean, that was badass. So, I love Arnold, the Governator, he had another one, good one, some of the ones I love the most are the autobiographies, because I think you get to just really take a deep dive into, what really happened. So.
Yeah. And one thing I love about biographies is
Did I mention any real estate books there?
You didn't.
I don't think so. It's because guys, that's what I'm saying. It's a business. You got to treat it like a business. That's, I think, the key takeaway here.
Well, and innovation is taking ideas from different industries and bringing them in. I mean, like you're talking about, I want to be the Chick-fil-A of apartments. That's an innovative thought, but that's what the greatest thinkers in history have done. Like I just read Leonardo da Vinci's biography, and he's known as one of the most famous painters of all time, but he was a scientist. He was a, anatomist. He was he was an engineer. I mean, all these things, but he created so many, new things that we still use hundreds and hundreds of years later. And we're still kind of dissecting and unpacking everything, all of his genius, but also the thing I love about biographies is that you learn about their failures. You learn about, things that, necessarily didn't work out the way that they wanted it to, but ultimately they still were able to become world changers. They're still able to be, people who are written about, in books. And so I'm curious to know, what are your, what's one failure that has really kind of led to a later success that maybe will be written in your biography one day?
One failure. So I think one failure that we're going through and trying to correct right now is that early on, probably in the last few years, I was too slow to adapt and scale. And that's why we have such a emphasis on it right now. It's that I'm a mentality. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do everything. Even going back, Jim Clayton, the gentleman that sold his company to Warren Buffett years ago, Clayton Homes, he actually had a bank after he did the deal with Buffett. And he was going around with me one day because he was financing a 150 unit deal for us here in Knoxville. We were actually doing community bank financing. And I'm sitting there having lunch with him and the broker at the time. And I said to him, I said, look, whatever, if the checks need to be taken to the office, I'm sitting here right across the table looking at him, getting real serious. Checks got to be taken to the office, to the bank. I'm going to do it. If something needs to be done, whatever it takes, I'm going to be the guy to do it. And he said, I love that. And I appreciate you. We're going to do this deal, but you got to learn to scale. I said, you're only going to be able to go so far. And that's when the kind of light bulb clicked with me, and we put more of a focus and attention on it. But I think, a failure that I had is we have like one of the best, I don't even know what her title is, VP, regional manager, whatever. Jennifer, the person that's on our team that really works side by side with me on the property management end, she's like, we have to do something. And that's why, earlier in this year, we had this big discussion, and she's like, we're not executing. There's too much sludge. We're not processing things enough. And I didn't have a good enough awareness of that. And I think, like, for example, if she would have said, this is too much, this is too overwhelming, I'm out, that would have been a huge disaster and it would have set us back. So I think dodged a bullet there, thank God. But I think it's just been too much. And again, I'm talking about, we're all in a systems, and we are, but sometimes I'm too slow to realize when we need things. So I got to be, sharper and quicker to implement and grow. Because I think that's constantly been a theme that's held us back a little bit. Because keep in mind, we have very lofty goals and acquisitions and things, but we have to be able to scale our property management alongside the syndication as we grow. And it can be, very challenging. We're operating about 1,600 units right now. And so, if say we get a 500 unit deal, we're going to be able to take it down, but you got to get the property management behind it, and you got to, get the people hired. So it's a lot.
Yeah. And it's like, you need to build the infrastructure before you've got, additional resources. Sometimes, so it's a leap of faith, so I totally understand. So what, with that, I mean, there's a little bit of a discomfort in terms of scaling, and I know that that's where you are right now. So what is something, other than, just the general concept of scaling all of the systems that you have in your business, that you're inspired and uncomfortably working towards right now? What's a big goal that you're working towards?
I think for us right now, we really do. We're trying to get that NPS score of 75 or greater. And so it started with, we use a third-party company for training in-house for, training our maintenance folks and then training the property managers. But we realized that it wasn't going to be enough to get us to where we want to be. So we actually started our own in-house training, where Uncle Sean, our videographer, has actually gone around with our maintenance lead, Brandon, and we've actually shot 3 different levels of maintenance training. And we have that actually now. It's in our what we use Kajabi for the Jake and Gino end. So we actually use that training for our in-house crew, and we've actually rolled it out now to one of our. So it's actually just being implemented right now. It's very cool, and we're utilizing a YouTube app. So say if someone's having to change a compressor on an HVAC unit, they're looking at it and they have their their EPA certification. They're going through it, and they can actually, boom, that video is right there, and we have an in-house video showing them how to do it, or how do you change a thermostat. We've actually done all these videos already, and we're in level 1 of rolling this out to the first office. And then from that point, once that maintenance piece is done, we're going to be rolling out phase 2, which is our in-house customer service program, to get to that NPS score of 75 or greater. So that's like, if you ask what our BHAGs are, that's one of the BHAGs on our scaling up list. And I think that's probably the one that's in my lane the most, because we have them on the Rand Cap side, have them on the Rand Partner side, and the Jake and Gino side. But that's my day-to-day, is running the property management. So that's where we're trying to get to with that.
There's some golden nuggets there. So I definitely, if you're in the same boat of scaling, if you're going to get there at some point, you need to replay that. That's for sure. There's no excuse but to take ownership of this stuff. If your employees or the people you're associated with don't know how to do their job, you've got to take ownership of that. And if your third party training company isn't doing what it needs to do, then create it yourself. There's so many resources.
And it's a good start. We're probably going to stick with it because it's just additional resources, but it definitely was not enough.
Yeah, it's huge. So what's the overall driving force behind what you do, Jake?
I really do think at this, remember we were talking before about, just improving the lives of others, by creating these communities that allow people to become the best version of themselves. That's what we really came together, and we put a lot of time and brainstorming into this. And, it's because, look, love making money. It's great. Love providing a great life for my family. But it's just we found as a team, it's coming together and creating these great communities of people we want to work with. Gino jokes about it. It's like, you got to pass the Gino smell test now when you're coming on board, because we want to be working with folks that we like. It's, Cameron Harold talked about like the beer test. Can we go out and have a beer together? You got to be able to do the job. You got to be able to work well with others, have good self-awareness, and then kind of come in and assimilate into our community. Because we're trying to create the great community for the residents, the students, the people on board. And that's what's really giving us a fulfilled life these days.
So I want to transition into the rare air questionnaire. This is kind of our rapid fire section. What it really means is, come on, we're talking about, look, we climbed Mount Everest. We're at the peak. Most people gave up hours ago. I mean, nobody makes it as far as people in
You got to start the engine every day, bro.
That's right. You never give up. And you also push past your limits. And so, we talked a lot about books. You've told me a lot about, some of the books that have been extremely impactful for you, and you've got 3 going at any one time, but you've dove into so many books over and over again to be able to take every piece of wisdom out of it. One thing that, I've learned is that every time you read a book, you get something different out of it. And I'm sure you have as well, but I'm curious to know, what's the most impactful book that you've ever read and why?
Yeah, it would definitely have to be Atlas Shrugged. I think the reason being is that on so many levels, it's chocked full of nuggets throughout the entire thing. But it's like it looks at objectivism and that you have to get contradictions out of your life, and that 1 + 1 = 2. Okay, and that there's no shortcuts in this stuff, because people will try to push it off. It's his responsibility. Why is this not happening? They want to dictate. There's no dictating, okay, in this world. You can go ahead and be a dictator if you want, but the way we elevate people is we create these communities and we coach folks and we try to allow them to become the best version of themselves. This is not, someone that at the point of a gun, you do this at the point of a gun or a whip, okay? That's not how we live our best and fullest life. So I think if you commit to that book, get rid of the notion that there's something religious about this, or there's something political. That's all bullshit. Take the book for what it is and the values that are within it, and then you do you, and find out for yourself what you think is real. So
I love it. What's the we've talked a lot about some of these concepts, but other than what we've talked about, what's the biggest way that you elevate your life on a daily basis?
The biggest way I elevate my life on a daily basis is surrounding myself with A players, because I think the quickest thing, the flip side to that is, one of our core values is having a growth mindset. That really ties into open-mindedness. You want to talk about a soul sucker. You get an employee on the team that is rigid, that does not have a growth mindset, that does not want to work towards the common goal. That shit will kill you. Okay. So you gotta have a team around you that's moving towards the same goal. People ask us all the time, Jake and Gino, what creates a great partnership? Well, number one, you have to have similar goals. Okay. And you have to have a similar moral compass and know where you're going. If Gino wanted to fix and flip and I wanted to do multifamily, that's not going to work. So you have to have, everybody on the ship beating the same drum. But that growth mindset piece is huge. If someone's not getting back to you, they're not being responsive with an email, or they're being rigid and saying, look, I just don't want to do it that way. Just, you got to part ways. You got to move on, because that shit will hold you back more than anything. I'd rather take somebody from a restaurant, and we've done this time and time again, that comes over that shows that they know customer service. I don't give a shit if they know how to properly manage. I don't care if they know how to use the software. But if you have that correct attitude and you're willing to serve others and you want to grow as a human being, come get on the ship. Come jump on board the Rand fam, and we'll teach you the rest, because that is more valuable than someone that can get on board and say, oh yes, I know how to use this little software program, and I've been trained this way, and robot d. But don't tell me what to do, or and it's not, and it's coaching. It's not don't tell me what to do, but hey, if we're doing it this way, we're gonna, because we've seen success with it, and they're giving that pushback. Well, I've done it this way in the past. I don't want to do it like that. That will wear you down. So you got to get the right folks on the ship.
When it requires humility too, to surround yourself with A players, because a lot of times it's like, well, wait a minute, are they going to be smarter than me? Are they going to seem better than me? And, I think you have to get past that. A lot of people, I think even Steve Jobs even talked about that. It's like, I don't hire people and tell them what to do. I hire people so they can tell me what to do, or, they can help me, create distinctions and identify where our opportunities are. and, be coachable as well. But what's the best way that you, or the top way that you elevate others around you? I know you do so many different things.
This ties into your last question, is that I've actually been, and this is just recently, I've actually attempted to speak less in our meetings and take a little bit of a back seat and find my hole where I can plug myself in, because I'm not allowing or fostering creativity if I'm just getting up there and dictating. So it's taking a step back during the meetings, allowing other ideas to surface. And then if we're getting derailed, then I'm going to pull us back in and try to get us on task. But that's how you really can let other people's input come in, and that's you can get those really good ideas. Classic example, we were on a meeting the other day where we have something we call the power wheel, where it's all the different Rand family of companies. And we're trying to think of a way to really allow people to have visibility to this. And it's like, do we do Rand family of companies? Do we do this? And so we're in one of these kind of brainstorming sessions. And, Dylan, who's on our team, said, what about Rand CRE, Rand commercial real estate? And it was like, that has a really nice institutional ring to it. And, it was available. We got the site. So you're going to see more stuff coming out from us, content from Rand CRE, from our family of companies. And so you'll be able to go to randcre.com and, be able to see stuff from Rand Capital, Rand Partners, Rand Property Management, different infographics and things, and how we are doing our business different. They came up with one the other day, light, medium, and heavy turns. So if you want to go in and put $2,000 in a unit, what does it look like? And so we're doing infographics on that. In addition to that, we'll be shooting YouTube videos. So for folks out there it is for you. We can help them out.
Boom.
And this is free. We're just serving the folks here, guys. So
that's awesome. Well, on that note, how can the listeners reach out to you?
Yeah, I think the easiest way, if you want to, check us out from the education side, hit us up at jakeandgino.com. I know the guys are working on the Rand CRE site. We have the #1 multifamily podcast on iTunes, Jake and Gino Podcast. Check that out. The Honeybee is coming. I think it's October 15th. So you're going to have to check that out. It's a parable. It's nothing like you've ever seen coming out of the real estate space. So I think it's going to be very interesting. Multifamily Mastery 3, October 19th, 20th in Orlando. I don't know what they're doing with promotions right now, but I guarantee there's some kind of promotion we can do for the listeners out there. I don't know if the GDAD is giving away 15-25%, but we can work that out for the listeners on the show. randpartnersllc.com. If you guys looking to get into a deal, look, it's cash on cash return from day one, force and appreciation for tomorrow. So,
boom. Jake, I love it,
Instagram handle, Jake Stenziano, at Jake Stenziano. Hit me up.
This is fun. This is a lot of fun. I know we could continue the conversation for much, much longer, but I want to be respectful of your time, and I want to be respectful of Elevate Nation's time as well. But I want to thank everybody for listening. I definitely want to thank you, Jake, for being here. And I want to remind Elevate Nation, the key is repetition. I mean, Jake's talking about reading books multiple times. I mean, if you listen to this show multiple times, you're going to get different nuggets, but you need to take massive action. You need to apply it immediately, because that's the best way that you're going to learn. That's the best way that you're going to create lasting results. And so until next time, take massive action and, share this with a friend. I mean, because look, there are so many people who are tolerating their life. Get them to a point where they're willing to, up level and raise the bar and elevate their own results. So again, until next time, appreciate it. Jake, thanks so much.
Tyler. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you for listening to Elevate. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to elevate your results by taking immediate action on what you learned. For more, visit tylerchesser.com.